Hey y'all, this is Alec, the Road Warrior Prepper. I'm telling you, people lost their mind today. So I now know kind of what happened. We're in Texas. We're almost in Mexico. We're in Texas. Today we lost the internet. We lost phones. We lost communications for 5.5 hours. It was almost pandemonium around here in the campground. It was crazy the way people were acting. One lady is, I've got a doctor's appointment that I've got to do online. You've got to get me up. I'm going like, ma'am, there's nothing we can do. For those that don't know, I live full-time in a motorhome. I work camp my way around America and meet all kind of interesting people. Let me tell you what happened. So Verizon and all its subsidiaries and all the people that contract through Verizon, like Spectrum Cable, were down. We had to close the campground today. We couldn't do reservations. We couldn't do check-ins. We couldn't run anything through our store. The phones didn't work. We've got voice over IP telephones in the office. There was nothing to do. We couldn't conduct business. You went to the convenience store down the street to get some gas or a soda. They couldn't conduct business either. The pumps didn't work because your credit card didn't work. They couldn't take payment. The place was crazy. I finally went and cranked my Jeep to make sure China hadn't launched an EMP that took us out, but it wasn't. And luckily it was only 5.5 hours, but people were crazy. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, if something happened to one of my kids, we've got 6 kids, Cindy and I do, we wouldn't be able to communicate with them. They couldn't call me. I had 2 kids and a future daughter-in-law at Mardi Gras down in Louisiana. That was their decision, not mine, but they were there. If something would have happened, they couldn't have contacted me. And then I went to my phone. I've got everything saved in a Google Doc. Stupid! All my addresses, backup contact list, you name it, it's online. I don't have a paper copy of anything. I'm supposed to be a prepper. So, internet's back up. First thing I did, Google Docs, print. I've got a hard copy. Now I've got a digital copy and a hard copy. 1 is none, 2 is 1. I've got a copy of it. Then I started thinking about, well, what if this lasted for a couple of days? Now, this is before it was back online, so to speak. What if this happened for a couple of days? I think there would have been riots breaking out in Texas. Now, my understanding is they had a hub or something go down. The whole east side of Texas is, from what I was told by the Spectrum people who run our business internet here at the campground, I was told that like almost half of Texas was without internet. A lot of businesses were closed. Now, somehow or another, the Walmart stayed open, so people were able to get food. But, you know, people were losing their minds. They couldn't watch TV. It was crazy. I had one lady come to the office before we closed it because she has a smart TV and she has a Verizon hotspot that she's connected directly to her TV. So she has unlimited TV. Well, she couldn't watch her shows. You would have thought the world would have come to an end because she couldn't watch her shows. If this had been a real emergency and people would have really been without being able to communicate, buy and sell goods for any length of time, it would have been crazy. So I'm telling you this story because you need to make sure that you've got hard copies of stuff. And then you have to think about, how would I communicate? Do we have a plan? Now I have a ham radio. I've got my son in Louisiana's got a ham radio. Of my 8 family members, 6 children, my wife and I, 2 of us have ham radios. We're in Texas, living in our motorhome. We're in this campground. You see all the campers and stuff, or the empty camp spots at this particular campground. But, so I'm in Texas, me and my wife. We've got 5 children in South Carolina in various places, and 1 in Louisiana who lives there full time. So I could communicate with my son in Louisiana once I got my radio set up, because the campground won't allow me to put up an antenna. But I'm telling you, I would have told them to pound sand if that had been the only way to communicate. Now, I could have gotten on the ham radio and reached somebody in South Carolina who could have then relayed a message. So, do you have a ham radio? Do you have a way to communicate people? And then I started thinking, because my initial reaction was EMP. China has attacked. Luckily, that didn't happen. But I started thinking, if we did have an EMP, my motorhome wouldn't crank. My generator wouldn't crank. My car wouldn't crank. And I've got a newer ham radio. Is it in a Faraday cage? No. So the $2,000 I've got in a radio would have been worthless. So I've got some figuring to do, but so do you. So do you. You need to figure out a way to communicate. You need to talk to your family. You need to come up with a plan. Now, then I started thinking about, okay, it's not an EMP, but we've had a cyber attack, and we don't know how long we're going to be without gas, ability to buy and trade goods. Now, luckily, I keep cash on hand. I keep silver on hand. I keep gold on hand. I think that as long as electricity was up, I could have bartered enough fuel to get from here to South Carolina or here to Louisiana and pick up my son and future daughter-in-law, and then on to South Carolina. But what do you have? What do you have to barter with? Could you get yourself to a safe location? Now, this was only happening in parts of Texas. And let's say it would have been a cyber attack and the system would have been down for weeks or a month. I keep 90 gallons of gas in my motorhome. I keep it full at all times. With my Jeep, if it gets to 3/4 of a tank, I'm filling it up. I don't wait for half a tank, or like my mother does, and let it be empty, or my wife if she still had a car. So, are you taking the time to make sure you've got fuel? We don't know when an emergency is going to happen, but I can tell you it's going to happen. And if what I saw today, with 5.5 hours of non-essential services shut down, internet's not essential. It's a convenience. Telephone's not essential. It's a convenience. TV is not an essential, but it's a convenience. Being able to buy gas, that's essential. And it was spotty depending on what internet service the gas station had would determine whether or not they could run your credit card. We had banks that were closed because they didn't have the bank that the campground banks with. The guy that took the deposit today said that he went back by there, the bank was closed because they didn't have internet. No access to money. So anyway, make sure you're prepared. Start making a plan. Y'all, I think 2024 is going to be crazy. I don't know if this was a real problem or if this was just a test and we failed and we emboldened our enemies. Stay prepared out there. I'll talk to you next time.